Welcome to the In Search of More podcast. I am your host, Eli Nash. Join me weekly on my quest for more from myself and more from this world. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome, Moishie.
Thank you.
I'm sitting here with Moishe Goldstein. Many things, but also someone involved in the Tikun Healing Center.
Yes.
So, in some ways, we've been on similar paths.
Yeah.
Addiction recovery, different addictions. And I know in some addiction recovery, especially the drug and alcohol, they don't believe that sex could be an addiction.
Yeah. They don't like to touch that. There's like there's some talk about it when it comes to the fourth step, but it's like we're staying out of it. You figure out your salt and pepper diet or...
Right.
Yeah.
What do they mean by that?
That they don't want to get involved in like they're saying the spectrum of what's acceptable sexually or is not is up for every person to decide. So
right, within the drug and alcohol addiction.
Yeah.
But I'm saying some don't recognize that sex could be an addiction.
You're saying specifically in AA?
No, AA, NA, like the...
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole school of people out there who don't believe that sex is a real addiction. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think that's specific to in AA.
I got you.
Because like I know a lot of people who are in AA and also identify, in one of the other programs.
Right, that's true. Yeah. Okay, fine, understood. Fine, I had this idea that in AA and NA, they often see SA as like, okay, whatever, you want to copy our literature. No problem, but it's not a real addiction. Okay, so in that way, right, going through an addiction recovery path for many years.
Yeah.
And then eventually finding our way to plant medicines. And in one way or another, sharing it with others, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Right? In my sense, maybe through this vehicle podcast, talking about my experience, and others, like you do through Tikun Healing Center, but that journey.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey because like I think about this often, like if you would have came over to me or someone, but I had heard about like ayahuasca probably 3 years before I did it. And at that point, the thought of me doing plant medicine was ludicrous. There was like no way, no how. But Hashem, the creator, architect of my life, had different plans for me. And when I think about it, yeah, it's an unlikely path. It's not one that I necessarily chose, although we absolutely have choice in life. I believe that this is the path that God put me on. That after many years of being in 12-step recovery and thriving there and helping others and helping myself, like
you were there more than a decade, right?
Yeah. Probably went to my first meeting like 16 years ago. Yeah, I didn't get sober for another couple of years, but yeah, I was in there and it was my life. It was my community and everything was humming along greatly until it wasn't, And, I think about the neshama, the song on Neshama Yeredis B'Sei Haguf. So the neshama comes into the body and it cries. And the song goes, it's Yerida Tzarech Aliyah until you accept that. And for me, it was like I was due for another Yerida in order to have this Aliyah that I think I'm
currently on.
Yeah.
The medicine Aliyah. So you're saying there was a Yerida, there was something that happened just before?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, and I can talk about that.
Sure.
It's like we know you mentioned sex addiction. There's another addiction, there's gambling addiction. And I thought I had tucked that one neatly away. It was actually like when I first got married, I had a little bout with online poker and lost a lot of money, lost our wedding money. And I went to a GA meeting and I got scared straight there. Like I walked into that meeting and it was very sad to see, the destruction. And I'm like, I'm not going down this path. Shortly thereafter, I got sober in AA and I just kind of like tucked it in with my program. God's will for me does not include gambling and no way, no how. And everything was going pretty good in AA until the pandemic hit. And I guess at that point in my recovery, I was very much dependent on the community aspect of the program. Like my recovery was dependent on me going to meetings, but not so much as a meeting goer, more of like meeting people there,
The fellowship,
the
the
community
social.
aspect, meeting up with
Specific.
sponsees, doing step work, and that kind of just came to like a screeching halt. And business also dried up in that point because I work as a consultant for the drug and alcohol treatment industry, and there was basically nothing going on. So I decided to try my hand at day trading. And yeah, and it wasn't long before I was completely wiped out, and
You
down.
found out that's an addiction too.
Yeah, it's gambling. I didn't recognize it at the time. I thought it's a way to make a living. For a while, I thought I was good at it. I thought I was getting better at it. There were days where I was making a lot of money. But yeah, it was when you start tapping credit cards and borrowing money, it's an addiction. So there I am,
How long from when you started day trading until you realized that this was an addiction like any other?
At least a half a year, maybe more. At least a half a year. It was, yeah. I mean, it took a while for the addiction piece to kick in. First, it was no. I'm showing up for work every day. I'm doing my research, doing my charts. Like treating it like a business. But when I started losing or when I wasn't having good days, it was very quickly becoming an addiction. And yeah, this is very, very difficult time in my life. And because I had built up this persona in my mind, this ego of I'm sober, and I didn't have at that point, call it the humility, call it I don't know. I didn't have what it took to go ask for help, to admit I did. I finally did. I went to mutual friend of ours, Robert Kessler, Mayor Kessler, and I told him, and he's like, you got to stop right now. And I did. I stopped that day. And that just put me in a very low place where I was completely destroyed. How could I have done this? I put my family through a very difficult time early on. And, when I got sober around 30, but my 20s were a disaster. They were a complete mess. And now I built up a beautiful life for my family here in Boca. We started over. We're part of a recovery community. And here I go, crashing it all to the ground again. So I was completely
humbling.
What? I was despondent. I was destroyed. And I think that's the beginning steps of me kind of thinking like there's got to be another way,
There's got to be more.
Yeah, there's got to be another way. Yeah, there's got to be another way.
And then from there, you found ayahuasca.
No, not straight away. I did ketamine at home treatment first. That was fun. It wasn't anything great. I know ketamine helps a lot of people. I know people that it helps. For me, it wasn't my medicine. I did one.
So it's a lot of people which it hurts.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about the dangers of ketamine, like ketamine, it's very interesting. At the same time as it's become like a healing medicine, it's also become a very addictive medicine, meaning in the terms of people falling into that addiction and needing help.
Yes, I know people addicted to it. It's a very, very, very difficult addiction.
Yeah, it's a very difficult addiction. I know people who are addicted to going to the ketamine clinic. Like, I don't like comparing it to ayahuasca just for a second, just in this aspect. Like, I don't know anybody that is in ceremony every single week. I know people that are going to the ketamine clinic 2-3 times a week. For a while, right. Until again, it's a very expensive way to do it, but I'm going to a doctor, so it's okay. It's not an addiction. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It could be tricky. Not to say ayahuasca can't be misused, but I think this one is.
Or everything could be, but there's ketamine it's a street drug also, right? It's one that's very common in the party scene, and everything else people trip up with this. Ayahuasca.
Yeah, I did ketamine back in the day. Like
ayahuasca is not.
No,
I don't. No. Not passing around ayahuasca at the clubs.
The dangers, if you will, of ayahuasca are not are not that. It's not about using it every day. It's more about like externalizing, like not doing the work. It's just going from ceremony to ceremony and not actually, taking the messages that you're getting or the teachings that you're getting and implementing it. That's
some of the dangers you see.
Yeah, that's the only one that I can see so far. Obviously, you have the people who aren't suitable for it. It's just, and we try to do our best to guide people or screen people out. Just if it's not for you, it's not for you.
How would you know that? What are you looking for when you're screening people out?
So you have the basics, like the basics are like history of schizophrenia, you and your family, bipolar, people who are on a lot of meds, like psychiatric medication. Not that that's necessarily the thing that will rule you out, because unfortunately today the doctors are very loose with their scripts. They're like, oh, okay, let's try this one. Oh, let's add that one. And sometimes people come with like a laundry list, 5 or 6 psychiatric meds that they're on. A lot of them will be screened out. Some of them not, but a lot of them will be based on that.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go into your story a little bit.
Yeah. So we went off track. So
there was no track.
No track.
We started
okay.
something, but now I think it would be helpful to understand your story a little bit and go from there.
Okay.
So you grew up?
I grew up in Crown Heights. I'm probably like 10 to 13 years older than you. So I'm 47.
I'm 39. Thanks for the compliment.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If it's compliments.
Yeah. So I grew up in Crown Heights with the Rebbe. Like I grew up on Eastern Parkway. 770 was down the block from the apartment building that we lived in. Saw the Rebbe multiple times a week. Went with my father to Farbringens. So I grew up in the culture in what Crown Heights used to be.
Yeah. Is it different now?
For me, very different.
In what way?
Well, first of all, the Rebbe's not there.
Right.
And it feels like, to me, like I understand why things must go on, and they do, but what I see doesn't feel like the same thing. It feels like we don't have that, so we're going to create, or we have to keep going, so we're going to, like, I'll give you an example. I went this year to Crown Heights after 13 years of not being there for Simchas Torah. I wasn't going to go. I go visit my family, but Simchas Torah was like, I don't think I could handle that. But I'm like, I can handle that. This is. Let's put the test. Let's put the rubber to the road. Let's see. Let's see how much growth you had. And it was great until I stepped into 770 for Hakafas. It was too painful. It was too much. It's like they believe, and I wish I believed like they believe, like that it's still going on. But to me, it didn't. It's just painful, I guess. It's just.
Do you feel an energy?
There was definitely an energy
to the past.
There's an energy there, for sure. There was an energy there, but it didn't feel like the same energy.
No, I'm saying you feel an energy of clinging to the past in some way, trying to.
Yeah, and again, I don't know another way, so I don't blame it. But I can't relate to it. For me, it was very difficult. It was just like, it was painful.
I interviewed Benzi Afton a while ago, who has a podcast called Homesick for Lubavitch.
Yeah.
And what I recall from that conversation was something similar, that he feels, I think even his name, his title, Homesick for Lubavitch, in some way was trying to bring out this concept that we're living as if we're homesick for Lubavitch, instead of saying, okay, where are we now? What's in front of us? And
right.
What's the world we want to create?
Yeah, so I live near a Chabad house. I go to Chabad every week, and to me, that's Lubavitch. That's the Rebbe. That is the ongoing. That's the real thing. That's actually the Rebbe's work continuing. Like, that is it. That's the real thing. And when I go to 770, it's like it's holding on to something that's not there. That for me.
I hear that. Okay,
I get it. It's painful. No judgment. Like,
I understand. You're sharing your personal experience.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say on it. That's why I was bringing in.
So that's where I grew up. I'll give you some context. Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe's passing was when I was 15 years old. So that's a very formal.
Yes,
it's an important
formative time in life.
Yes, it's very so. again, my life is centered around the Rebbe. Now the Rebbe is not here. And growing up, never thinking that was possible, when it happened, it was at 15 to have a crisis of faith, it's difficult, and I did. It was, I don't know that I even fully recovered from that crisis of faith. It was difficult.
Can you put it into words? Meaning, what do you mean you didn't think it could happen? Why not?
Why not? Because to us, the Rebbe was supernatural. The Rebbe was not a human growing up. We didn't see him as a human. Even when he was sick in the hospital, I lived there. I lived at the hospital. I didn't go to yeshiva anymore. Once the Rebbe was in the hospital, Beth Israel, I was there. I was there all the time. The Rosh Yeshiva said, "Come back to yeshiva or you're thrown out." I'm like, I'm here.
What were you doing there?
Saying Tehillim, hanging out. I must have said Tehillim I don't know how many times. Just that's what the life force was. Like that's where I needed to be. I didn't feel like it could be anywhere else. And again, holding on. Like if we say Tehillim enough times, if we stay, like it can't be. So when it happened, it was shattering. It was
cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, it was.
What's the fallout of that? What's the personal internal fallout of holding on to a belief so strongly that something transpires that just doesn't match that belief? And what happens internally? Because you said
so you begin to question everything, and then, or I begin to question everything, and then judge myself for questioning everything, and then be in a loop around that about how I'm feeling, and it's not okay to feel that way, and everyone else seems to be moving on, and people are like more invigorated than ever, and I'm like, no, I'm in mourning. Like everything I believe in is like that.
It sounds like betrayal trauma. Have you
again, I recognize this as one of the most traumatic events of my life.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why it sounds like betrayal trauma. So there's different kinds of betrayal trauma, but what I mean by that is, the way you're talking about it is the way a spouse may talk about finding out that the way you're talking about the Rebbe's passing is the way someone may talk about finding out their spouse was cheating on them.
Yeah.
And suddenly questioning every single thing in their life. Those family pictures we took last year, were they real?
Yeah.
That date we went on and they said X, Y, and Z, was that real?
Yeah.
That's why I say betrayal trauma. It feels...
Yeah, and I don't think but I don't know that I was able to lean into that, because how could I feel that way about the Rebbe? So it was almost more to God, than to the Rebbe. Like the Rebbe didn't betray us, like God betrayed us.
I wasn't putting it on anyone specifically. I was talking about your particular experience.
Yeah, but I'm saying that there was a struggle around that. Like how could this be?
And you're saying it's still very much alive inside you now?
Obviously.
As we speak.
Obviously. It's something that, again, I have a very hard time. So I kind of created a life. It took a long time for me to get there. But like my kids know, like, if you want to play around with me, ask me on my Chabad. Ask me straight out, you Lubavitch. And I'll dance around it. I grew up Lubavitch. I go to Lubavitch, because it's a real thing. It's like, I don't necessarily I'm not.
So let's dig in on this, because I'm sure it's impossible that you're the only one who had this experience.
That's why I'm speaking about it.
Yeah, it's not possible.
Yeah.
There's zero chance that you're the only one who was completely traumatized by the Rebbe's passing in a way. I don't have a better word. Maybe there's a more appropriate word, but in a way that feels very much like someone who was betrayed. So you went to blaming it on God. You said, I want to blame it on the Rebbe.
Yeah.
Let me blame it on God.
Yeah.
Okay, so how is that expressed? How do you say that?
How do I say that to who?
To God. What is the complaint? What is...
It wasn't a complaint. It was a rejection of like a...
But for what reason? What did God do?
He took him away.
But that's what he does to everyone.
Obviously, now I can understand that, but at
you
15,
can't,
at
obviously.
15 years old, I don't understand that. No,
But there's a part-
today I do understand it, but it still hurts. Like I
Well,
don't
there's
have
still
any.
something-
I don't have any complaints to God about that today. I have new complaints. Those are like,
But there's still something unresolved about it for you.
yeah. It's. I feel like maybe I never really got to that level in the grief system of acceptance. You know, I maybe I skipped some steps along the way. I'm not familiar with exactly what the stages of grief are, but I know there's a bunch of them, and it's possible that I didn't go through all the stages, and I just skipped to acceptance without really going through the whole process.
Okay, so let's go through the whole process.
If you know the steps, we can go through it.
I don't know those steps.
I don't know the steps.
I don't know those steps, but I know other steps.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, just common sense, right? I can ask questions.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm sure other people have experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
It's very real for them. I was younger, like we said, 7 or 8 at the time. And I do remember my mother waking me up in the morning, Gimel Hamas when the Rebbe passed. And there was a sense of shock in her voice. Like I can't, for some reason, I still remember that. I almost like I can't believe it happened. So clearly you weren't the only one. I don't know that others had it the way you did exactly, meaning being in the hospital for that period of time. So you're very much living with it, being at a formative age, teenage years, where you understand everything, but the mind is not as mature and developed. I think until 25, it's still very much developing. So it's an interesting time, an interesting story. So it may be more than others, but I'm sure, obviously there's many others who were also teenagers at the time, but I'm sure this is many, many, many people. That's why I think it's worthwhile to explore it. So what was the complaint against God? I'm trying to understand how at any point in time there was the complaint against God. What did God do?
God took him away. I remember like very clearly waiting online.
But where was the expectation that he wouldn't? I mean,
because we believe in miracles and we believe in
that came from God?
and we believe in Mashiach. And we believe in all these things. So, okay, now's the time to make it happen. If it's real, like now, when's a better time? Why?
Yes.
Because
the Friedrich Rebbe died, the Rebbe Shab, the Rebbe Rosh.
Today I can see that, but in that moment, no, the Rebbe was everything. The Rebbe, like, I don't want to go on like the Rebbe was Mashiach, like, but yeah, the Rebbe was Mashiach at that point. At that point, the Rebbe was Mashiach. If Mashiach is real, if Tchias HaMesim is real, if all these things are real, now is the time. What's a better time, God? Like right now.
So I guess what I'm trying to get to is someone obviously told you something that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think you had a vision of God communicating to you.
No.
Right. So, and
but I was communicating with him. Like I said, I remember I was like waiting online. We waited online to go ask Mechila by the Rebbe. The Rebbe was in his office and everyone would walk by and ask for Mechila. And I was talking to God the whole way there.
I get that, but yeah. I'm saying that I'm making a different point. What I'm saying is that someone communicated something to you that wasn't true. And the proof that it wasn't true is that when reality hit, it bumped up against what you thought was possible in reality.
Yeah, we weren't brought up with that reality. It wasn't a reality that we were brought up with.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. So when you say you weren't brought up with this reality, who told you this? It wasn't the Rebbe and it wasn't God. Unless it was the Rebbe in some way, then tell me.
No, I don't.
It certainly wasn't God. I'm saying you weren't communicating. God wasn't talking to you and said, this is never
God wasn't talking to me. Obviously, I was brought up in the Lubavitch school system, and
what were you led to believe? That's what I'm trying to.
That the Rebbe was everything. The Rebbe was everything.
So wouldn't the complaint rightfully be addressed there? It doesn't belong to God. And unless there's something the Rebbe said specifically.
Today it doesn't lie with God. And there's no complaint. Like, there's no complaint. Like when I'm making jokes about what I consider myself, I'm not bought into that system anymore. Like I believe in the Rebbe's vision. I believe in what the Rebbe stood for, but I don't believe in the Chabad Lubavitch school system.
Do you accept the word betrayed? Does that feel... When I describe the way a spouse who finds out, the way someone who finds out their spouse is cheating on them,
Yeah.
and the way they react, that they question everything in the reality for the past number of years. And they say, how could this be true? And how could that dinner date be true? And how could those family pictures be true? And how could that trip and that I love you and the hug and all of those things? That's an actual reality.
Yeah.
When people are cheated on and they do not see it coming, then they go through this massive
disillusionment. I mean, it's
it's just shattering of...
Right.
Nothing makes sense.
So
literally nothing makes sense. They start questioning everything about the reality. And so when I describe it, does that feel similar?
Right? But with time, you can go back and actually see, no, there were good parts of the marriage. There were good things. Like there was a betrayal. So that's why it's difficult, because I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I'm not saying like the whole thing is bad or the whole thing was a betrayal. This piece of not being properly prepared or thinking that that's a reality, or putting the Rebbe on a pedestal more than he needed to be. Like he didn't need that. Like he was a great man without being supernatural. Maybe that, again, the way we were raised thinking about the Rebbe was chelik elikam imal mamish. Like
I thought that's all of us.
I know, but for him it was like
a little more.
Yeah.
Mamish.
Like, yeah. It was like,
okay, but you seem to be hesitant to point to the boogeyman here, and I'm not interested.
Because I don't want to throw the baby
we're not
out the
throwing out the baby
bathwater.
with the
Like I
bath.
don't want to sound like I'm saying that the whole thing was bad.
But you're not saying that. You're wearing a yarmulke, a beard.
This piece was just a very painful piece in my life. I don't know that it could have been avoided.
And there's a reason I'm spending time on it. Is for two reasons. Number one, that you're not the only person who went through this.
Yeah.
Number two, three reasons actually. Number one, you're not the only person who went through this. Number two, it's still very much alive in you, right? It can be felt very obviously, I think, by someone watching.
Yeah.
And number three is that it could be informative as we are raising children as well. It matters the way we speak, and it matters what we say, and we're educating it. It matters, these things we communicate.
Yeah.
And I have a theory about the present time that we're living in.
Okay.
And I think that it's a period of mass disillusionment right now. Meaning it happens at all points and all times in society, but there's something about this moment in history that if we look back a number of years, we'll say this is the period of time that a tremendous percentage of society went through a phase of disillusionment. You know, you can have like the Enlightenment period.
Right.
Maybe this will be called like the disillusionment period, right? It's a period of time where we just find out so many things we thought were true are not true.
Yeah.
And I feel like understanding your story could be very helpful for many people going through disillusionment now. And that's why I want to spend time on this. To me, it's fascinating.
Right.
I'm quite interested in it, but I also think it's...
I've gotten this fascination from other people in the past only because it seems like, again, people are scared to say it if they feel the same way, because it feels like throwing the Rebbe under the bus, or it feels like whatever it feels like, you know, or people don't know, like everything seemed to be humming along perfectly fine after, so like, why are you so different? And I really don't think I am. I think I'm just talking about it, you know, and maybe my path took...
You're talking about it, but you're also dancing just a little bit.
The programming is strong.
The programming is strong. So, okay, so we want to understand. But I'm, like you say, like throwing the Rebbe under the bus. What would be the argument to throw the Rebbe under the bus? What did he do?
He didn't do anything. He was just conveying what he felt, like the urgency of the moment, and that was understood maybe as a 15-year-old, like this is actually the moment. Like this is, it has, like the Rebbe is saying, now is the time. We just have to polish the buttons. The Rebbe is saying, crying, like it like.
Got it. Okay, so that urgency. So that's actually interesting. That's actually interesting. That urgency being translated literally
for a 15-year-old.
15-year-old, yeah. Could
for a
be
15-year-old who also, like I've thought about this a little bit, and I think I can't remember exactly. I think it was maybe Dober Pinson or someone was talking about this, about like the different relationships that people had with the Rebbe. And mine was very physical. It was very much like grounded in me seeing him, being in his presence. And for other people, it was more about the work. And for other people, it was more about the teachings. And those people continue to go on. But for somebody who was very much grounded in reality and being in his energy presence, like
that changed.
Yeah.
And that was a message you feel you got directly from him, that time is of the essence. And
it's happening.
And it's happening.
It needs to happen. It's happening. And then it didn't happen. Not only the opposite.
So, okay, so how do you see that now? First of all, why is there such a hesitation to have a question to the Rebbe? Like why do we have to start with a baseline of there's no questions that could be asked? Is it not respectful to ask a question?
Today, I don't see it so much as an issue, but again, in the time that was, it wasn't.
I'm only talking about as you sit here now,
Yeah, as I see it, as I sit here now, the Rebbe was a human being, you know. I hesitate to say fallible in some way, but I know that he did the best that he could, and again, he wanted it for all of us, and that's what the urgency was that he was trying to convey. I don't think he was misleading or trying to, like, he wasn't, like he gave it his best shot, you know.
Is it possible that the urgency could be that a moment could be longer than literally a moment?
Of course.
Meaning, so as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Rebbe railed against giving land and giving territory in Israel.
Yeah.
Right? How terrible it could be, how destructive it could be. And no doubt if the Rebbe was alive in 2004, 2005, at the period of Gaza disengagement, he would have said the same things.
Right.
This is a disaster, a train wreck. This is a terrible idea. It didn't take too long to materialize, but there was something really felt in the last year around this decision where a lot of people woke up and said, okay, wow, this was a pretty big deal. So the Rebbe screaming and pounding the table about giving land away in the 1980s and 1990s or even earlier than that feels very relevant, even though maybe the biggest reality descended on our heads in 2023.
Yeah.
Is it?
That's a very fair point. It's a good point, because I think about that a lot. Like, the story isn't over till it's over. So, like, yeah, the urgency, there was not, like, the urgency is still there. If not, if it's probably more than ever, like, the urgency. If I think about, like, Rebbe was crying, about Gullus. He was crying about the darkness that we're in. Today, like me, you, like when you have these conversations, I have these conversations, like the darkness is real. Like,
it's thick.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, it's thick.
And he was talking about that 20 years ago.
And it's gotten thicker.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the urgency is still there.
More
so. There was nothing wrong with with the urgency. As a 15-year-old, I didn't understand. As a 15-year-old, I felt like there was an urgency, and now I feel like it's not true. It's over, so it must not be true. Today, where it's at today, no, the urgency is real.
Okay, so I'm only talking, the questions I'm trying to ask you are about what's feeling unresolved for you today, because there's something that still feels unresolved. So if it's not that, what is it?
I don't know. I can't pinpoint it exactly. I don't know. It's just, again, I think it's a piece that for whatever reason I haven't felt all the way through it. I haven't, like, fully processed it. just that I kind of just like look at it like that was 15-year-old me, and that's what happened, and that's why it happened, and how it happened, and that's okay. It's like kind of just leave it alone. It can be grouped together with the other traumas and the other difficulties in my life of just feeling through it today. It's okay. Yeah, you're sad. You were disillusioned. Like,
so if you don't mind me
that
asking,
15-year-old is disillusioned. I don't know.
the way you answered the stuff on the Rebbe landed for me. Meaning, at the time when you were 15, you're hearing something in the moment.
Again, we're
It
talking
sounds very
about one of the
literal.
most painful periods of my life. So,
Okay, but there's still more unresolved.
I guess we'll find out. I don't
Okay,
know.
so can I ask a few more questions
Sure.
about it? Okay, good.
Yeah, my permission.
Excuse me for pushing a little bit.
No,
So you said something earlier about, like maybe those who put him on a pedestal didn't need to put him on that type of pedestal, or something around.
Well, you were asking me what they could have done differently because
Yes,
what's your
exactly.
complaint? So the only complaint I could have is, again, I'm 15-year-old. I'm being brought up in a certain way. Maybe again, there could have been more. I don't even know what that looks like. Like I don't know.
As you sit here today, what's your relationship with the Rebbe?
With what is my relationship
With the Rebbe? How do you view him today? Is it positive? Do you look up to him?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure, positive. Only look up to him. A little bit embarrassed of not like living up to the potential that he would have seen in me. Like my path is a little bit not on the straight Chabad path, so a little of that, kind of like a father. Well, I have that with my father as well. Like father has like higher ideals for their kid, and like the kid knows like his father's a rabbi, like he's expected to be a rabbi. So there is still some of that.
You think the Rebbe would be embarrassed of your path?
No, I sometimes feel embarrassed, but I don't think he would.
So you felt like if you walked in front of the Rebbe today and your journey in the 12 steps and helping a ton of people.
No, I believe he would be. I believe he would be proud of me.
Okay, so it doesn't match what you just said. So what did I miss?
There's a piece. There's a piece. It's not the true piece. Like the same piece that has doubts, the same piece that's fear of judgment. It's a piece that I'm still working on.
Got it. This voice in the head
of being fully comfortable with who I am.
Okay, but this voice in the head this incessant voice in the head that doesn't stop talking.
The judge, I call him.
The judge.
The judge.
You know what I used to call mine Siskel and Ebert. Siskel and Ebert just gave out 2 thumbs down.
Yeah.
So
I mean, today, as I sit here today, no, I think that the Rebbe would be proud of me because of the path that I'm on. Like I think so. I when I go to the aisle, I don't feel embarrassed. I feel like I show up like the way I am. Like when I was a teenager, showing up at the front of the Rebbe without a hat and jacket would be unthinkable. Today, I show up as I am at the aisle, and I feel very comfortable.
Got it. But there's still like a little voice inside you that says you didn't follow the straight and narrow path. This must be like a Geshe thing. I don't have it at all.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have it at all.
Yeah, so it may be.
I'll tell you why.
We can talk about Geshe for a second because it's like, in my opinion, misunderstood, or at least the way for me.
Yes.
So to me, like Geshe is just expectations. It's just a massive set of expectations that put on you as a little kid. People think they know you because they know your grandfather, or they know your uncle, or they know your father, and you're expected to like fit some mold of whatever they are or whatever they were. So it's just expectations. It's nothing more than that. So again, it's a label that you didn't ask for that gets put on you.
But there definitely seem to be certain ideas that make its way through the Geshe population, and there's certain ideas that make its way through the Balchuva population. So we have our trauma.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is because some of this conversation is reminding me of the first time I interviewed Mayor Collinson.
Yeah.
Did you see that podcast?
I listened to it. And then my son told me about it, that he listened to it, and everyone in yeshiva listened to it. It was a big, it was one of your more famous ones, I guess, more popular ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was titled, I think, Abandoning Religion to Find God.
Yeah.
And in that podcast, Mayer brought up some very similar, it feels very similar ideas, because you kind of dance off the ideas. You say it, then you take it back.
Yeah.
We don't have enough time to figure out exactly why you do this. It's like this weird strategy. It's like, whack-a-mole. You say something, but then you don't. Then when I bring it up, you say, no, I didn't really mean that. I meant something else. So it's the new guy to dress. A therapist would have a field day with you. But but what Mayer said, there was that he felt somewhat, this is my interpretation of it, he felt somewhat lesser than, because he was doing breath work and he wasn't following some traditional path of shlichus or something else, that some explanation was needed. And I pushed back and I said, Mayer, do you know how many people you have helped through this process? There are many teachers and many Rebbeim, and that was their path. And
I don't know why you think it's anything more than the self-judgment piece. It's not that complicated, for me at least. Like, I know exactly what it is.
How can you say it's not complicated when you've been in AA for 16, when you've been 12 steps for a bunch of years?
Yeah.
You've done a lot of plant medicine.
Yeah.
And it's still there.
The judge is still there.
It's still there, right? So it's definitely complicated.
The judge is there. Like, in where was I? I was in an energy healing session. Lady I like to go to, she's very good. And I'm like, I just want to kill the judge. You can't kill the judge. Like, the judge also has positive qualities. Like, a word that's come up a lot on this podcast and also come up is discernment. Like, discernment is the good part of judgment. Without discernment, you can't feel into what's right. So, like, there's discernment and then there's judgment, where you take it, like, that's the ugly stepchild of discernment. So you can't kill the judge, but you just have to be, there's that judgment. So you pointing out to me that what I'm saying doesn't exactly, that's the judge.
I hear. Let's go back to the question about the pedestal. Let's see if we can pull the thread long enough for it to not disappear. So on the pedestal piece, you said that there are others who clearly put him on a pedestal, which, by the way, this part of it, I completely resonate with. I want to share. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Rebbe. I learn a lot of his teachings. Not only do I learn them, but I take practical action and decision making from it. If I receive a letter from the Rebbe that I believe is intended for me, I take action based on it. I've made significant decisions in my life based on communications that I felt were transmitted that way.
Yeah.
So, and I do think about that, right? I do think about myself in terms of sitting face to face with him, and would my actions, or would they not make him proud? Because I see him as a very positive revolutionary who did incredible things, and I want to be attached to his messages, to his train. Right? I do. I feel it's a good one. So I want to say that clearly. I stand very boldly and proudly as someone who pushes his agenda, and I believe that a lot of the things I do match his. And I recognize that many people do what they do and find support in his words. I recognize that. He said many things and has many books, and I recognize the potential for error in those things. But at the same point in time, there's a tremendous amount of respect and reverence from me to him. Now, I also see that he was put on a pedestal for me in very, very, very harmful ways. I felt like a lot of messages were communicated, or a lot of messages about the Rebbe were received by me as me needing to attain some level of perfection in order to be worthy. That was the baseline. Because he was perfect, I was meant to be. And that dehumanization of him was dangerous for me and others. So on this, you have a you have someone who's experienced something very similar.
Mhm.
I think when you mentioned that pedestal, it woke something up inside me and saying, yes, that was very much my experience. I felt like he's
But I'm
on a
saying-
pedestal. He belongs on a pedestal.
No, but
and
he
for whatever
didn't. But
reason,
that's what
he
I'm
was
saying. He didn't need
raised.
to. When I said pedestal, I said he didn't need to be on a pedestal. We created a pedestal for him that he didn't need.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Again, he accomplished so much. He was such a, like you said, revolutionary figure. He impacted people's lives so much. We didn't have to dehumanize him. It wasn't a necessary piece. But as a kid growing up in Crown Heights, that's what it felt like.
In what way?
Just and I don't know if it was the language or just like about going to the rep, like there's so many positive things about it that I don't want to get too like lost on the negative, but like I would be shaking when I had to go in front of the Rebbe and say, it's my birthday. Like it's again, it's a positive thing, but it just lends itself to kind of understand like what we were talking about. Like we're going in front of the king. We're going in front of, yeah. So I don't know that if it was language or how we got that message, but that was the message that we had. And again, it dehumanized him to the point of being, in my view at that time, supernatural. And then like, again, then it all falls apart.
So why not put the blame squarely on that messaging? And blame not for the sake of blame, but blame for the sake of instruction. And
but what's
say,
the point now? Like
that's what I'm saying. Blame for the sake of instruction, because we're all trying to be better parents. We're all trying to be better teachers and educators. And it sounds like for whatever reason, either some fell into some sort of mental trap and then brought others into it, or some thought that exaggerating a truth would be to our benefit. And it turned out to have real life consequences for some people. So I think having an opportunity for someone like you who went through a disillusion process like that was a man-made disillusionment. God didn't say it to you. And the Rebbe, you explained how there were certain things that fed into that for sure. But I think looking back at it, we can understand how a moment doesn't, the urgency was called for then, and a moment could be longer than that time. And there was plenty that has happened negative between then and now that an urgent call to action was warranted at that time. But on this third pillar, the pillar of a community which communicated some understanding of the Rebbe that was clearly in conflict with reality, meaning whatever they told you somehow bumped up against this reality in 1994 when he passed away.
Okay, so
Didn't match.
So now you just brought something up, that Simchas Torah in 770. That's what's going on there. They're still holding him like that. They're pretending that he's there. They're pretending that he's supernatural. That's what was uncomfortable.
Okay. So
we're talking about like a past, but there's a present. There's a present that still feeds that.
Okay, so you're saying some have adopted a belief of, like they say in the 5 stages of grief, right? The first one is denial. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
So you're saying that some are stuck in that stage, in the stage of denial. To this day.
Potentially that's what's going on. That's again, to me, that was very hurtful. It feels disingenuous. It feels like corrupt. It feels like, again, like what I was witnessing was kind of like Bizarro World, Superman. Like, yes. I'm in 770, but this is Bizarro World. What's going on here? It's
right, like, and especially rubs up against you because you as well are in that phase of grief that hasn't reached acceptance. I don't remember denial, bargaining,
potentially
anger. I don't remember all the stages. Do you remember the stages?
No, I don't. That's why I said I don't.
I think it's denial, bargaining.
It's a we did bargaining. I definitely did bargaining. That was underlined. Waiting for Mechila. That was the bargaining.
But the bargaining
it's bargaining with God.
But that was when?
Gimel Tam was the day of.
Oh, okay. You passed by the urn or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so in that stage, bring him back in some way.
Yeah.
Let's work this out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was
Then I think there's anger.
definitely acted out after that.
And I forget, then acceptance.
Story, yeah.
I forgot. We can.
So I'm working on acceptance. We're getting there.
Right. The question is where.
We're getting
Okay,
there.
fine. Fine. It's for others to tackle. If ayahuasca didn't succeed, I can.
What?
I say it's for others to tackle, but it's clear that it's something, and I think you talking about it and sharing about these things is very important, like I said, because I think many people have experienced it.
I hope so.
Okay, bring us through additional aspects of your story past this period.
Yeah, so again, disillusionment after that, not willing to go all in on this is BS, like back and forth throughout the years. I guess we could just fast forward to my 20s, where I was a raging drug addict. Like it got pretty dark, It was all fun and party. Like my friends were all partying. I was partying. It was all in the name of fun. But everybody got married and everybody grew up, and I was a raging drug addict. It was very, very difficult time. I remember.
Do you remember the moment that brought you to your knees?
There were so many moments. That's the thing. That's like
bring us into one.
I think that's always like an important message that I like to say is like your bottom is gonna be when you. They have that saying: your bottom is when you put the shovel down and stop digging. You know, right? Mm-hmm. So, but there are these moments. There are these bottoms, and I remember one very clearly because it was very painful. It was right after my son was born. And I just had that bout with the gambling, losing all the wedding money, and I was using every day. And I remember just looking at him in the crib and him looking at me, and I felt like the biggest piece of in the world. Like he could see, like this kid could see straight through me, see straight into my soul, and I wish that would have been the moment. That could have been the moment that was a pivotal moment and probably set me to first treatment center or something. But it was a few more treatment centers and in and out of the rooms until I finally got sober.
So you got sober, and then you became.
And then I became very active in AA. Like when I finally, after again, multiple treatment centers, in and out of the rooms. I like to say, there's a cute line, I forgot it, but I guess I haven't said it in a while. It's working the promises and hoping the steps come true.
What's that?
What? That's like basically bypassing the steps.
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone recently who he was struggling with sex addiction. And I said, it seems like you belong in the rooms. He said, I've tried the meetings a bunch of times. They don't work for me. So I said, tell me about that. Like, what didn't work? And he tells about different experiences with the sponsor and everything else. And at some point I asked him, I said, did you do the steps at any point? So he said, no. So I said, so what do you mean you worked what do you mean when you say you tried it? I said, what do you think meetings are there for? So he said, for the connection and recovery, and 12 steps is all about connection and recovery. I said, that's not what the meetings are there for.
Right.
I said, meetings are forums to integrate the steps into our lives. That's what it says.
Right.
Because I think this dovetails well with the whole concept of integration, which a lot of people talk about in psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of integration is community. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. And I'll explain what I mean by that right now, but in the context of integrating three different things. So if we talk about integrating psychedelics, integrating 12 steps, or integrating Judaism. If someone wanted to learn Judaism and say, I want to learn how to practice the Torah or practice halacha, what would be the best way to integrate the message of the Torah into one's life?
Daily practice.
But how? If they read a book and they went about trying to figure it out, they'll probably bump their head in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
A more ideal way would be to join a community
Okay.
that seems to have these things you want in Judaism. And then in conjunction with becoming part of the community, joining the community, then also read the books. And then those two things, and the same is with 12 steps.
Mm-hmm.
If someone reads the book of 12 steps, it could get very confusing. Are they going to walk in, make amends to their boss? Like, there are a lot of mistakes we can make reading these things.
Mm-hmm.
For example, that's a big one. That's a huge one that you see a lot of people make when they just read the steps.
Right.
So they go through, they're sitting in a meeting, they hear the 12 steps. Oh, make amends. And the amount of people I've seen make this mistake and have been encouraged, and it was communicated clearly by the sponsors. You read it, but it's the 8th step. So don't start on amends until you've done the first 7, which is not so obvious because it seems so simple. And for step 11, where it talks about prayer and meditation, we don't say that. No, start prayer and meditation immediately. So that distinction where we say, okay, don't walk out of this meeting and make amends to someone. Hold your horses.
Mm-hmm.
But step 11, go ahead and start right away, prayer meditation. The only way you can learn that is not in a book. The only way you can learn that is through people who have tried to integrate these steps into their life, bumped into the walls a few times, and said, okay, this one we're going to take literally as the 8th step. This one we're going to start practicing right now. Like, this is the actual way to integrate it. That's why I say community. Community is the way we integrate, is that we see other people who've done plant medicine, got blasted into some stratosphere, came back to reality, and you say, okay, so how do you work after that? Well, let me tell you what happens to the guys who don't.
Right. Let
me tell you what happens to guys who do plant medicine, think nothing matters because they've seen all these other worlds, and then they find out very quickly it does matter. Because if you don't have a job and you don't have, food, and then those things start to matter very, very quickly. Anyway, so
the community piece is definitely,
that's my understanding of integration.
Yeah, the community piece is definitely one of the most important things with all those things. And we all need community. Like, at the end of the day, like we're the way I think about it is, and I guess I learned this in plant medicine, is ultimately like we're a collective. Like me and you, everyone, we're all part of a collective. And what happens in life, or at least for me, what happens is, like, I get stuck in my head. I'm in my head, and I start to forget. And I think that whatever I start to think, what the messages that come into my head, or the overthinking, or the judge, or all these different things that happen, and then I forget that I'm part of a collective. So the community is the piece that keeps us reminded of that. That we're part of the collective. I forgot why I went there, but
because we're just talking about that. It's community.
So when it comes to, well, we touched on it briefly at the beginning with my story. Like, that's the piece that I became very dependent on. Like, that was where I was holding at that point in the 12 steps, where it was just about the community.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with COVID. So my first plant medicine experience was about 6 months before COVID. But I had a couple, and it was like, okay, nice, good, informative. But I was still going to meetings. It was still very much a part of my life. I couldn't talk about the plant medicine journeys there. Everything was okay except for the plant medicine journeys. But I was still connected to the steps, connected to the meetings, and I guess dependent on them in some way. I saw my recovery as tethered to that.
Yeah.
And I never imagined. So I'll tell you a story about the rooms I went to. It was in South Beach, these rooms, and the tagline for the center is a permanent home for recovery on South Beach. And this area where this little tiny, I don't know, maybe 2,000 square foot building with 6 meeting rooms.
Is this sober and sober, or
exactly sober room? Yeah. So this little tiny place, that area has gone through a major gentrification. New buildings going up, restaurants, and everything else. And they absolutely refuse to sell this little piece. There's one building, if you go down there now, you'll see a building which they bought everything around there, this massive building, and they built around them.
Okay.
Right? They built around them. And what I heard was that whoever was buying this building offered them, we'll put you up in a temporary place a few blocks away, and then
Build you a new one.
we'll build here, or let's say a 4-story building, and we'll give you everything. You'll have your own place in here, brand new, remodeled, and just for the 2 years that we're under construction, whatever it is, you'll be in another place. And they said, no, our tagline is a permanent home for recovery on South Beach. So for me, this was rock solid. These guys didn't give into money, right? These guys aren't going anywhere. And I always saw it as that. It's like, look at this place. They're so tied to their principles. They don't give it on anything.
Yeah.
And, if someone doesn't give it on money, then they don't give it on anything. All of a sudden, COVID came, places shut down. And it in some way was a little bit of a disillusionment for me. Yeah. I was like, whoa, everyone started running suddenly. Yeah. This permanent home for recovery in South Beach, not so permanent after all.
Yeah.
And then we tried. A few of us were meeting on Lincoln Road, outside, and 2 or 3 people would show up to the meetings. I remember being very, it's not here. But in the back of my head, I said, hey, I had a couple plant medicine experiences, and maybe I'll lean on that. And as I went further into that, eventually the meetings became less and less of a dependency.
Right. And then you learn, through the process, or like after not being or not going anymore to meetings, like I kind of wanted to understand for myself, like what are the components, like really simplify it. Like, why does this work? Or how does it work? And for me, it comes down to like 3 things: is belief in a higher power or principle. So your life has to have more purposes. Can't just be about you or what's going on in your head. A framework, something that you do every day in service of that higher power principle, whatever that can be. It could be plant medicine. It could be breath work. It could be yoga. It could be like, what are you doing to stay connected to that purpose in your life or that higher power? Prayer, meditate, whatever it is. Like that, obviously in 12 steps, it's the 12 steps, and then community. But I think if you just have the community, then you just become dependent on the community, and you kind of start to miss out on, you start to forget like the higher purpose and power.
Yes.
Which is what I see also like in Judaism in practice. Like for me, growing up with everything that we do, it just became habitual. Like it wasn't tied to a higher purpose.
It's what do you call it? When you make the ikr tafel and the tafel ikr, the primary becomes secondary and the secondary becomes primary. In this case, the primary becomes non-existent and the secondary becomes primary.
Yeah, and it just becomes like just doing, like going to meetings because that's my schedule. Just wrapping tefillin because that's my schedule. Where it's like,
I think if you walked into meetings and you took a poll, and you say, why do meetings exist? Why is meetings part of the 12 steps?
Yeah, they'll say it's a support group.
What?
They'll say it's a support group.
I say less than 50% will know that meetings are forms to integrate the steps into our lives. Like that's exactly what the meetings are stated.
Most will say it's a support group. Some people will say it's there so that we can find the newcomer and help the newcomer. But I don't know if anyone will say it's to integrate the steps in our life.
But that's what you heard in your program too, right? Meetings are forms to integrate the steps into our lives. This is at the beginning of every single meeting we had. The preamble was meetings are steps to integrate.
No, that's meetings not part of the preamble in A or in A.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay, that was part of the preamble. That meetings are forms to integrate steps into life.
Yeah. Meetings are a place for newcomers to find us so that we can take them through the steps. So maybe that's...
Okay, that's the way, Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, something like that.
But but go with that. So meetings are
so that newcomers can find us so that we can take them through the steps.
Through the steps.
Yeah.
Specifically.
I don't know if it's in a preamble, but that was my understanding. Like, why do after years and years sober, why do you still go to meetings? So that the newcomer can find you, and then you can take them through the steps.
Right. And the role of a sponsor is?
That's the role of it. That's why, basically, the meetings are a place for sponsors to go to find sponsees to help
take through the steps.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another one. If you asked, so interesting, in our meeting, that was a preamble. Maybe that comes from, it's possible that comes from one of the sex addiction recovery books.
Yeah, it's definitely not
part of the literature. It's definitely part of the literature there.
Okay.
And like it didn't become part of the preamble because someone wrote it. It's part of the literature in that program, 100%.
Okay.
But the role of the sponsor is another one. If you ask the average person in recovery and said, what is the role of the sponsor? Which you understand that I think the way I do is the role of sponsor is taking through the steps.
Yeah.
That's what
I
don't know. If I'm going through a hard time, I call them.
Yeah. I mean, my sponsor was a great support to me, but he was actually also, he is a very humble man. And he would say, I don't know, like, go do the steps, like look into, like go, like, or maybe he would point out the place in the book that could help me,
Yes.
or but he would more question, like, what are you doing for your recovery, like how often are you meeting with sponsee, like it wasn't like advice, like he wasn't like an advice
Right.
giver. But I've seen those sponsors, like I've seen them in the rooms, the sponsors who relish and enjoy that role of being the guru and the advice giver, and
Right.
there are a lot of those characters in the rooms.
Yeah. There's all sorts, right, all sorts of characters for everything.
Yeah.
Right. To me, the reason I brought it up is because I just had this conversation a couple days ago with this guy who was saying he tried the steps tried meetings a few times and it failed.
It didn't work.
I was like, wow, at no point during all the time we were there did someone say that.
Yeah, and that was
it's all about the steps.
And that was me for a bunch of years,
Right.
Until I was ready.
Okay, so did you see the podcast with Tzvi Haber?
Yeah, Tzvi is a friend.
Okay, what were your thoughts on that? In other words, let me ask the question more specifically. So the conversation really dovetailed around the 12 steps, recovery, and then plant medicines, right?
Mm-hmm.
The recovery that happens through the 12 steps and plant medicines, and concerns around it and compatibility with it. And
yeah, I wish they were compatible. They could be, but
by the way, there is a program.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I looked into starting the meeting, but it never.
Something like, I think it's called psychedelics in recovery or something.
Yeah, I looked at it at one point. I was like, we should do one at Tikun, but there are other parts of the 12 steps that I don't align with anymore either. So it's
interesting.
Yeah,
like what?
I'm not powerless. Like there's the first part, right? That I'm not like identifying as an addict, and you've spoken about that, and I share that sentiment, and that's a good point to talk about just quickly. Like, while I don't identify as an addict, I don't fall into the category or the trap that Tzvi was talking about. Some of his friends, like,
of
using plant medicine, and that means they can use again. No, I'm not an addict, but I'm
stay in front of the microphone, otherwise create.
I don't identify as an addict, but I don't drink or drug. That's just common sense. Like, kind of what, like, he was talking about, his fear of doing psychedelics is he wouldn't want to gamble the chance that maybe just whatever 0.0%, whatever percent chance he said, like, that he could end up using heroin again. So I done plant medicine. I do plant medicine. I don't do heroin. I don't drink. I don't do, like, those lessons in my life have been learned. I don't need to go back and learn it again. Although I will say,
so you won't take a sip of alcohol?
No.
Got it. So,
but what I will say, that after my first couple experiences, the thought did come that maybe I could. But then the rational thought came after that: why would I risk it? Maybe I could, but why would I risk it? Like, I know that I'm not in the same headspace. I'm not, some would say, the same person that I was then. And there's a good chance that I can be like your friend Omar Pinto, but I'm not willing to find out. It's not something that I need to find out.
What's interesting is that I'm kind of in the same camp as you on this, where I don't identify as an addict anymore, in the sense that I don't feel like my brain operates the way it once did, that addictive, obsessive, compulsive. But at the same point in time, I don't watch porn.
Yeah.
Right. So I found that labeling myself as an addict was unhelpful. Also, it doesn't feel true anymore. My mind used to feel insane. When you spoke about your friends, like, there was a party phase, they got married and you stayed. So I had this experience once.
I got married too, but the party still stayed.
Oh, I got you. Okay, I didn't get you. So I had this experience once. In the denial phase of addiction, it's not a problem. Look,
of course,
So for me, I was addicted to strip clubs, but one of the things I told myself for a period of time is that I don't go on weekends, and then it became I don't go on weekends past 11 o'clock. Like, during the weekday, I don't go past 11 o'clock. Whatever. I had all these stupid rules, but one of the kind of aha moments for me was I went to a strip club with a few friends, it was business friends. We're there for a little while, and then we left. It's like a business meeting there. We left, all got in our car, drove away. after 2 blocks, I made a U-turn and came back. And I was sitting there and I spent a couple hours longer. And at some point in time, it hit me. I'm the only one who came back. Like we all left. We're 4 guys. I'm the only one who came back. Like So when I talk about that, I started noticing at some point in time that around sex, my mind just seemed a little bit different than others. It was something that I needed a lot of help with.
Yeah.
And today I don't feel that. I don't feel like that lens is one of the ways I
you don't feel like you have to protect yourself today, where there was a time.
Sexuality is something that we all need to protect ourselves for always. Like every human being needs to, right? This is
no, but I've heard you talk about like not being able to be on Instagram. You can be on Instagram.
I don't have a lock on my phone today,
right?
For example, I don't have a lock on my phone today, but that changed even before I still consider myself an addict, and I didn't have a lock on my phone anymore. There was a filter that I felt like I used to look at the world through, like a sexual filter, sexualizing almost anything. An experience could just turn sexual. A question can turn sexual. Travel can turn sexual. It was just a sexual filter that I looked at the world through. And I felt like over the work that I've done, especially with plant medicine, that's been removed. And that's one reason I don't identify with the term addict anymore. I don't feel it's true for me, but it didn't lead to drinking and drugging, or in my case, my drug of choice.
Yeah, so like on one level, like what addiction is like the removal of choice. Like you no longer have a choice. And today I feel like I do have a choice. So I don't drink or drug today, not because I can't, it's because I choose not to. That was never the case. Like even when I was in the 12 steps, no, you're powerless over your power, and you need to stay away. No, I don't need to stay away. I choose to stay away because it doesn't own me anymore. I can be in a room like this actually happened early on, so I can't credit it to plant medicine, but even like after
stay in front of the mic, just
after completing the steps, like I can be around alcohol. Like that was actually the aha moment. Like the obsession was lifted, was, when I can when I was actually.
But that happened within the steps.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That happened within the steps, but there was still a fear, like a built-in fear, which the rooms kind of breed. Like if you stop doing this and this, it can come back.
Yes. And
that just isn't the case anymore, because I haven't been to a meeting in 2.5 years and it hasn't come back. Like there's just zero interest in that. Like I have zero interest in drinking, drugging, doing any kind of behavior like that can be self-destructive. Like,
and what you're sharing there, is that in response to what Tzvi said in our discussion? Meaning, do you see his concern?
I see his concern for people early on. This kind of ducktails back into like what you were talking about, community. Right now, plant medicine doesn't have a built-in community. It doesn't have what AA has. And it is easy to go and have like a plant medicine experience like you were talking about, and go quit your job, or go decide after, again, one time drinking medicine, I'm no longer an addict and I can drink successfully, safely like everyone else. And there is a danger there, because you may find out very quickly that that's not true.
Okay, so recognizing this danger, right, which spills over into many areas of life, that someone could take plant medicine and arrive at a decision that over time they'll find in this dimension and this reality doesn't quite work the way if they thought it would. So how do you account for that at Tikun?
So first of all, something that we say at Tikun at every integration, at the end of every ceremony, we have an integration circle. And something that we always say is no big decisions for the first 30 days. If it's going to be true today, it'll be true in 30 days. So don't quit your job. Don't leave your wife. Don't move to Peru. Probably don't start drinking again. Don't like if it's true today, it'll be true in 30 days.
But what's interesting about that is when I started recovery, I was told the same thing just for 6 months.
Right.
Is that when we start the healing process, there can be a certain jolt.
Yeah. Again, you can be riding high in the pink cloud. Like the 12 steps have a pink cloud too. Like we guess that's just times in life we experience, like we're riding high and we think we're invincible, and maybe not the best time to make life-changing decisions.
So what you're saying essentially, or I think what we're both saying, is that that potential exists in other places. It's not unique to plant medicine.
So I don't think like plant medicine is telling people they can drink. Like plant medicine is not telling people to go re-engage in a behavior or lifestyle or whatever it is that caused them difficulty or crashed their life before. That's not, you can't put that on plant medicine. That's on the individual, and that's why the individual needs support. And there I'm acknowledging Tzvi's point about there not being necessarily support around that yet. That was, I think,
okay. So my question for that
point.
Okay, so outside of an integration circle at the end of a ceremony, how do you guys?
How do you
guys account for that at Tikun? Recognizing this,
so we have weekly integration calls, so
that everyone is welcome.
Yeah, so it's a free meeting. It's more than a meeting, but I'm saying we have a weekly integration call that everybody's
been at a ceremony previously
is encouraged to attend and welcome.
Meaning, if someone's at a ceremony a year ago,
they can still come. Yeah, they can still come. So we try to offer that support, try to offer that community, and hopefully over time, like the community will grow because, like when I spoke about like the 3 components that I see, it's a necessary component. It's something that people need. And right now, because of there's still controversy around this, so there are people who don't feel comfortable. Like there are people who still will ask before coming who's going to be there. Like they want to make sure that they don't see someone that they know.
Yes, same like a meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're not at a place yet like where there is like meetings and rooms and support. So we're trying to offer that to the best of our ability, but I feel like it's not where it needs to be in order for this thing to be sustainable. In order for people to I guess I come at it at the from the addiction lens, where the risk is going back to your addiction and ruining your life. So so it's very serious to me,
the risk of medicine.
Specifically for substance use addiction people, more than anything else. Like tremendous success with sex addiction people. Like we have a lot of people who have come to us and have had major success with that. And I see that with substances, there is this danger, like of going back out.
Right. So So I'm glad you're here talking about this, because both your personal experience and the expertise within the plant medicine, right?
Yeah.
That I didn't have the addiction to drugs or the addiction to alcohol, that whatever it is that moves someone in that direction. But for someone who has that, are they more likely to get caught up in plant medicines than another kind of addiction?
Again,
specifically because of substance.
If it's done respectfully with intention, I don't think so. We just, at the end of the day, because there isn't a built-in community, you're going home to yourself. You're going home to wherever you're going to. There's no support there. So, I'll give you an example because this happened with me. When I first started, before I started ayahuasca, I went and I did mushrooms, right, with a facilitator, and it was an okay experience. It wasn't like anything great. It was okay. It was okay.
Mm-hmm.
There was some healing there. There was some messages, but it wasn't life changing like ayahuasca was later on. Like it was. And then I was like, you know what? I think I want to do this again, but I don't want to pay that much money. Like I know I can get mushroom. Why do I like? What did the lady do already? She was on her phone. She was sitting there like, I don't need that. Like I'm gonna go do it myself. So here you see that this is like the danger of someone who has a history of substance abuse, like starting to think that like the ceremony is not important. What's important is the medicine. So I'll just get it myself.
I got it. Okay.
And then I know stories like that where people, like, again, they started off in a ceremony, but because they have this substance use addiction, it quickly translated into other things, like where it's like they're just taking mushrooms all the time,
I got it. Okay, so you're acknowledging that potential for risk amongst people who struggle with substance addiction.
Yeah, I think for them, it needs to be done ceremony. Well, it's my opinion that, and again, this is just my opinion, that it's ayahuasca and ayahuasca only. And I'll explain
Meaning
why.
what?
Meaning, so again, this is based on my experience with these other substances. You heard how I describe them. I won't describe ayahuasca like that. Ayahuasca, even though I've done it many times, I have a very healthy respect for it. I'm scared of it. I am not running to go back. There isn't that piece of actually getting addicted to the ayahuasca.
But realistically, have you seen anyone enter plant medicines and stick just to ayahuasca? Is that even a possibility?
No, I'm saying for I guess I'm talking again about someone early on. I think as you do more you get more awareness, you get to know yourself a lot better. But for the person that's spent a little bit of time in AA and they're hearing like there's more healing to be had, AA isn't working for them necessarily. They're still struggling while in the rooms. And they're thinking, oh, maybe I should go do ketamine, or maybe I should go do mushrooms. I see more risk there of having a similar story like mine, where it's like, oh, this was good. I like this. I'm going to go do more. Like,
right.
There isn't that hard,
No, ayahuasca definitely has that.
It has like a built-in protector.
You don't know too many people who do it themselves.
Right, exactly.
Right, there are a few shamans that are known.
So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that piece of like getting addicted to the ketamine or to the mushrooms or
MDMA or other stuff.
Yes.
There it has a
I feel like ayahuasca has like a built-in protector.
It does, right? It does command a certain reverence.
Yeah.
For sure. There's no one who's, oh, let's go to dinner. We'll take a little ayahuasca first. But people do that with mushrooms or with MDMA or other stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I understand.
So I feel like that's a real concern. But ultimately, I feel like the most the most important, I think, message for me is like, you just have to be true to yourself with what's working and what's not working. So I feel like, and I probably know a few people who are in the rooms and they're not thriving there. They're just stuck there. They're stuck there because that's their community, and they're scared to give up their community. They're scared to leave that. So they're kind of just they're struggling, but they're not struggling with their sobriety. So like, they're just gonna stick it out. They're just gonna keep on doing.
It is in some sense a life. What is that quote? Most men live lives of quiet desperation.
Yes,
and it has that quality to it. I began seeking out plant medicine because I lost hope in the 12 steps or in any of the therapies that I had done to date to help me with my anxiety.
Great. So that's a perfect example. So there are probably a lot of people in the rooms who are sober, but they're anxious as hell. But they won't touch plant medicine because they don't want to lose their community, or they don't want to give up their chip. That was a big one for me, giving up my magical number that I carry around, my identity. I'm sober X amount of years in AA. Right. It was a big one.
Right. I figured out the solution for the chip thing.
Just don't do that.
Right. So, I realized at one point, how I was caught up in it, and then
you get caught up in it. Sure.
There's a relapse. You lost a chip. F it. I'm just going to do whatever I want. Right. I'm like, wow, it couldn't be a stupid idea. So the chips weren't so helpful. The chip system seemed like it was turning on itself for me. And I know for many people it turned on itself. So I thought that at some point I should walk into like Crystal Meth Anonymous or something and say, I want a 35-year chip. Because I've never done it. Meaning just the stupidity, the silliness of creating all of these.
But that's like the ego.
Around.
The ego
wants the ego attaches.
Attaches to identities. And like, that's my identity. Again, I was struggling, but I didn't want to give up that identity. It was hard.
Right. Yeah, this is the, it's, the way I've described it when talking about the 12 steps and what I felt plant medicine offered to me. And today, I haven't done ayahuasca in a year and a half. I have no plans of doing it anytime soon. It helped me tremendously. It transformed my life. I'm forever grateful to it. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the medicine. And at some point in time, I may feel the need to return.
I feel the same way about the 12 steps.
Right. Interesting.
Tremendous amount of respect for it. A lot of gratitude for saving my life and giving me an amazing life for many years. No feeling about needing to step back in there.
Oh, so you know what's interesting? I still use the 12 steps, meaning I feel like it's provided me a very healthy framework and language around healing, around recovery. I feel like it helped me think about this in a structured way. It helped me articulate a lot of ideas. So to date, I still have a lot of respect, like not only respect and appreciation in the past tense for what it did, but a lot of respect day to day that it has so much wisdom and intelligence. At the same point in time, one of the ways I've described it is as, we're trying to climb a ladder, we're trying to ascend and grow. And at some point in time, we have to grab a rung, and the rung may say something like, I'm an addict.
Mm-hmm.
I need to surrender to this program, whatever it is. And we grab that to pull ourselves up. But as we're climbing up, if we hold on too tight to that rung, then we can't continue ascending. So it's wonderful that this rung was available for us to grab and pull ourselves up. But if we hold on to it, we can't continue growing. We can't continue ascending. We can't continue evolving. And I think the same is true with plant medicines. If it becomes someone's identity in that way, then it can hold someone back. And that I've seen it around some who facilitate, right, who get into that role a lot, that becomes a certain identity. And the ego is crafty.
Yeah.
The ego is crafty.
Yeah. It loves identity. So I try to be careful now with that. Like I definitely had, like being on this podcast, I'm glad that we had a well-rounded conversation because I don't want to be that guy. I'm not that guy. Like for many years, I made myself the 12-step guy or whatever, that identity where I really got attached to it. Like I want to be very careful about not doing that with plant medicine.
Right.
Like that's, which is a little bit of like a paradox because what do I do for, like, it's also my purpose work, but I don't know what the future holds. I don't know like what my, like I said, if a couple of years ago, if you would have said that I would be doing ayahuasca, I'd be like, you're crazy. No way, no how. So I don't know what the future.
Do you feel like you're an evangelist for the medicine today?
Absolutely
do you feel like,
not. I am not.
Do you feel everyone should do it? Do you feel a lot of people should do it? No. So
I don't believe everyone should do it. I can't. It's not my decision to make who can do it or not. Besides, obviously, like what we spoke about before, it is my responsibility to be a good steward of the medicine. And if someone is not a good fit, to try to help them see that and maybe direct them to somewhere else where that might be a good fit. But no, I'm definitely. Again, I've seen the cases where it wasn't a good fit, and I've seen the cases where like it was a good fit, but it wasn't followed up with action. So like I've seen it all and I see it all. That being said, it is my purpose work. Like I get tremendous joy out of being there, out of watching people come in for the first time and then seeing them leave, hearing them share an integration, like the insights that they've gotten. And then the people who actually show up on the Zoom calls, seeing them actually progress in their life. I'm getting the same fulfillment and joy and purpose that I was getting when I was sponsoring someone in 12 steps.
Right. So in many cases, it's witnessing a miracle in many situations. Yeah. It's seeing someone grow, seeing someone evolve past a certain place. It is witnessing a miracle.
There's a few people who really have turned their lives around, like completely. Like they're different people. And, 10, 15 years ago, I was like, this guy must go to 12 steps. Like he's got to go to the 12 steps. Like there's no way he's going to get sober, if he doesn't do the work, if he doesn't do the steps. No, he did plant medicine and plant medicine only. But he's focused on integration. He's focused on making changes in his life. He's focused on being a better husband, father, and
yes,
he's doing it, but he's staying plugged in. Like he's
right. I think some people get nervous because with many things, when we get into the 12 steps, we think everyone has to do it.
Yeah.
And then eventually as we sit around long enough, we see some people come and it benefits. Some people come and they get worse. I've seen some people get worse in 12 steps.
Yeah.
Where, especially in the S programs, a guy comes in, he's watching porn. He hangs around for a few months, all of a sudden he gets a bunch of new ideas in his head.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's risks involved in any of these.
There's always risks.
Right, like any of these things. Yeah. So you say, okay, not everyone can benefit from the 12 steps, but for those who are willing to apply themselves to a program, there's tremendous wisdom here.
Right.
Right. And the same is true with plant medicine, where many people get involved, become some form of evangelist. Everyone's got to do this if only they saw it.
Yeah, I don't like that. Like, that's another part you were mentioning.
But I think it's a phase. I
agree. So I was thinking about that, and like with the 12 steps with AA, when I first got sober, I was like, I'm going to go reprint. There was a booklet of the Rebbe's Sichas on Mashke, and I'm going to spread it all over Crown Heights, and I'm going to make sure in the yeshivas they talk about it. Like, I was an evangelist for being sober. Like, that's what the Rebbe really wanted. That's what we need to do. And then time passes, and I'm like, no, the work is for me. I need to do the work for myself. And if someone wants, support, or they want my help through the 12 steps, like, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be, an example, to try to walk the best path that I can and help others. So the same thing with that. I'm not.
Did you go through that phase with plant medicine?
Only 2 people.
Really?
Yeah. Only 2 people. And that's pretty common. Like, when people, after the first experience, like, you want to go tell like the 2 people that you know in your life that can really use it.
Yes.
And then after time, after being around some difficult ceremonies, you see that this is not easy. This is hard work. And like, I can't make that decision for you. I can't tell you that you need to do this because I don't know what you're going to go through.
Right. Sam Harris says no one should recommend plant medicine until they've had a bad trip.
Yeah, and I've had those.
Yeah, it's meaning until we understand how bad it could be, what we may be subjecting someone to. Because someone has a blissful experience, and you say, "Okay, you take it; it's going to be amazing." So not necessarily. And then even then, to recommend is a dangerous game, especially unsolicited.
Yeah.
I'll have people call me sometimes and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this, and what's going on? Do you think I should?"
If they're asking, so that's something else. If I get a phone call and you're asking me, that's the calling. If you're calling Moishe Goldstein, that means you got the calling to do ayahuasca. So and even those people, like, I'm always honest, the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, I don't sugarcoat it, again, because I've been through enough of these ceremonies myself and watching others that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what you're signing up for. I will say that 99.9% of the people are okay afterwards. They made it through and they're grateful for it. But again, they're still signing up for something very difficult.
Yeah, I think that even for the people who make it through and do well, I think that plant medicine is a difficult path.
It is.
I think the 12 steps is a difficult path.
It is.
Recently, there's a gentleman who I've got to know through Adama, and he's done some plant medicine. And from there, he actually, after plant medicine, after Adama, he decided he's joining the, Adama doesn't do plant medicine, but he joined the 12 steps.
Interesting.
And he realized he can use it for his sexual recovery, began that process. So we were chatting about, different things related to it. And, he asked me if he's like, can I ask you a question about the steps? Is that still something you talk about? So I said, yeah, I'm still very passionate about it. I still like it.
Yeah.
It's in my bones. I feel so grateful that I had all of that experience coming into medicine. I had the language, I had the framework. I don't know that I would have benefited from the medicine. I don't know. I know for a fact I wouldn't have benefited as much from the medicine without that experience. It's one of the things that I wish I said to Tzvi when he was sitting here, Tzvi Haber, when we were talking about that, is that someone who's gone through this path of the 12 steps for years or other kind of therapeutic work, and then they pivot into plant medicine work, that work is not lost.
Right.
That all comes with us.
It's a great introduction and preparation for plant medicine. Again, like we're
it helps
talking about
tremendously to integrate.
The people that we're talking about, that maybe there's a danger if they don't have that framework coming, and if they have some sort of acknowledgement about themselves and they've done some work around themselves with 12 steps or something else, they're more likely to have success.
Yes, there's something for it to stick to.
Yes. I want to go back quickly just to the powerless part, because I wanted to see what you feel about that. So do you feel like you're powerless over your life?
Do I feel like I'm powerless over my addiction, my life become manageable? So the answer is no, but I don't. It's like I don't disagree with that for the program. It's not like I don't subscribe to that in the program.
Oh, no. The program is perfect the way it is. I'm not trying to change the program. I'm just saying today I don't relate to that. I don't feel powerless. I feel very much empowered, that I have a very clear head. I can process things when I'm going through difficult times. I don't lose my shit. I'm not looking to run away. I'm able to recognize I'm triggered and work through it. Like, I don't feel powerless or that my life is unmanageable in any
Right,
way.
but I don't see that as contradictory to the 12 steps. Meaning, I think that you have the 12 steps, and someone embarks on this journey in order to get to a certain state. And you have, for example, Bill W., the founder of AA, or one of the founders, who at some point in time when he tried LSD, he said, "Oh, everyone should do this." And the powers that be in the program said, "No, we're not making this part of the program. This is your time is coming on."
He was an how do you say the word? Evangelist.
Yeah. He was an evangelist for LSD.
Yeah.
He pushed it.
Yeah.
But I think for him, he saw it as he was evangelist for the 12 steps also.
Yeah.
So he, I think he saw it as something that could be,
Yeah.
that could
be very helpful.
But my point is that framework of the 12 steps, right? Sometimes somewhere this idea came about that this is forever. It's a terminal problem. And I don't know that has to be embedded in the program. It's certainly not the most Jewish idea in the world that something is that sticky. No, we can heal, we can change, we can grow. At the same point in time, there are so many risks inherent in that. So when we're in our addict mind, we can take it back so many times, and that becomes very dangerous. So the program cautions against that. And one of the things I say is that I didn't conclude myself that I'm no longer an addict. And this may sound bizarre to anyone who's never done ayahuasca.
Yeah.
But to someone who's done it and they know exactly what I'm talking about, that was a conclusion that was delivered to me. And say,
delivered from where?
From ayahuasca.
But from where? Where did that come from?
What do you mean, where did it come from?
Where do you think that message came from?
That's an argument about whether ayahuasca is a spirit talking to us or whether it's internal.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is that the same message, that's something that I don't think will, tish bi'ataretz kushis v'abayis, right? We'll get that answer of exactly what's happening,
right?
What the exact mechanism at play is.
Right.
But it very much feels like there's something else communicating to us and telling us something, and we can't control that.
That's true.
We can't wish it to be. We can't go into a ceremony and say, I hope in this ceremony I get told I'm not an addict. No.
We can't wish it, and we can't wish it away.
Not only that, is one of the things that's important is I'm not saying it. This was something I said to Tzvi. I don't say I'm not an addict so that I'm off the hook and I can watch porn.
Right.
I say I'm not an addict so I'm on the hook more, so I have more responsibility, so that if I see something that previously I said, oh, I already consumed a drink, now I'm semi-excused because I'm an addict.
Right.
No, I'm not. I have full choice every step of the way. So it was delivered in a way that didn't get me to take less responsibility for my life, to take more responsibility for my life. And that's what ayahuasca does, right? I mean, that's consistent with that message. So I think it's a misunderstanding when we'll say, oh, you're just going to take the ayahuasca and say no longer an addict and you go back. Well, hold on, not for everyone. It didn't happen till the 20th time I drank it, right? It wasn't immediately or whatever it was, right? It wasn't the first or second ceremony, but at some point in time that felt communicated to me. But I do want to ask you, because you got stuck on that. So where do you think it comes from? Because you seem to have a strong opinion.
No, I don't have a strong opinion. I'm just curious of other people's opinions. I feel like it was actually mentioned, he articulated it really good at your last podcast, Nissim, at the end. He told a story about a lady, and he told her to ask Hashem for the answer. And then the answer came. And she was like, the point of the story was that it was deep down inside, but the process he was doing just revealed it. That's what I think ayahuasca is. Like that's been my experience. It's your higher self, your heart. It's inside. I don't get any. I haven't had the experience of having like downloads come from anywhere else but from within me. And I know that that's just my experience because I've heard the other experiences. And
right.
And like you said, we won't know until we know. So I don't call BS on it. Like I respect it as being that person's experience. For me, ayahuasca is me. It's bringing out me. It's not. There's no. I'm not communicating with spirits. I'm not getting any outside information. I've certainly got information
that there's no way that my conscious, subconscious, any part of my mind could have received,
Right,
could
but
have
that goes
had,
back to the
or
collective.
to myself, that somehow you can say like tapping into some sort of super conscious,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
how that happens. Okay,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
ayahuasca
Yeah. I'm
spirit?
fine. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. Like
Yeah.
tapping into the collective or the superconscious.
Yeah, that was some information.
Yeah, because that kind of weird stuff happens in ceremony about
yes,
the interconnectivity of people. And
yes. Okay, I want to make sure that our conversation feels complete. We spoke about a number of different things. We spoke about the Rebbe. I got a little caught up there, and that I thought it was important. I hope you were okay with all the questions I asked there. You don't feel like I pushed too much.
No, it's something. Like I said, it's something that I'm at the acceptance stage. I'm there. Just have to go all the way through with it.
It's like multiple parts, you know?
Yeah. I just need to go all the way through.
Actually, I did have a question. So there was a guy who came to Adama recently, and his therapist put him on like a 3-week course.
Yeah, that was a great program.
Adama, and then like a week at Faith Nice or something.
Yeah.
Not or something. Adama, a week at Faith Nice, and then 8 days at Tikun.
Yeah. I was a little bit involved in the planning of that. Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Neat. Okay, thanks for the referral. He's a great guy.
No, the referral didn't come. That started from the therapist, but it was about like how do we tie it all together? And
oh, I got you.
Yeah.
So my question was, because you mentioned like 8 days at Tikun. So what is that? Meaning that sounds like much more than someone popping in for a ceremony and then leaving. It sounds like a much more robust support over 8 days. What's going
so
on?
that's he was the first, and there was a little bit of variation that happened for personal reasons of how that worked.
Oh, it wasn't a standard program that he signed up to, that a bunch of people were on this 8-day course.
There was a program. I think Eliezer was here a couple months back.
Yes.
And he spoke about combining the ayahuasca retreats with a longer container that includes a workshop. And
yes.
So that's what he originally signed up for.
I'm laughing because
you get a chance to correct it now.
No, Mayor comments one time. It's like, I watched you talk to Eliezer Nirenberg on this podcast. He keeps talking about Anochi and never once mentioned Adama.
Yeah.
I said, man, I'm not a good marketer. That's your job.
Yeah. So,
but here we said it. We corrected it.
Yeah,
Mayor,
we corrected it.
please forgive me for
not
doing my part.
So what we ended up doing and what we're looking to do. So on the podcast, Eliezer also spoke about master plan dietas.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I remember that.
So master plan dietas are when people go to Peru or Brazil or wherever they go, they sit with a tribe. They're given a specific plant that works in conjunction with ayahuasca. They're in a tambo, which is a hut in isolation, and they drink ayahuasca every other day while dieting this plant. And these plants are designed to bring out certain things, like based on what you're struggling with, the shaman will decide which plant you should be dieting.
Right, non-psychoactive plants.
It's non-psychoactive, but from what I've heard from many people who've done this, like they get messages and downloads from the plants, like because they're in this heightened state of have just drinking ayahuasca, not really eating that much, and being in isolation. So, what we're working on, and we started to do it with this client, is offering that at Tikun. So in April, God willing, Alex, I don't think he was mentioned on this podcast. Alex is my partner along with Eliezer. We're 3 co-founders along with Jacqueline, Alex's wife. Alex's shaman from Peru will be coming to Tikun and running the first of these dietas here in the United States, which is a big deal because they never
That's
leave.
Awesome.
They never leave. And
so you'll have people in isolation the whole.
We're gonna have huts around the property. We have a beautiful 5-acre property. We're gonna build some of these huts for people to do the dieta, and it's another modality that really isn't that available here, different than the workshop model. So it's more about introspective work, working with ayahuasca and the plants, and being alone with yourself, and really getting downloads and realizations, and sitting and journaling all day. And it's supposed to be a very powerful experience. I haven't done it yet, and I'm looking forward to doing it at Tikun.
You know, as a result of that podcast, there was someone who did a dieta.
Oh, I'm sure we got a lot of inquiries about
No,
Tell us about Peru.
Right. I know there was a terrible marketing podcast. He sold Peru and Anochi. You know, Anochi is good guys. And I hear they do great work.
Yeah.
There are people I've met who've done both, and I hear beautiful things about the retreat. I told to Adam Klasner, I want to say it here as well, because Adam, I was talking about being on the podcast, and at some point in time, Anochi did an event at the House of More, and he said, like, is it okay? I said, Adam, it's okay. Like, we're not competing with each other. We're competing against casinos. We're competing against strip clubs. Like,
exactly.
The people come to you. There's a lot of darkness out there, and there's a lot of people who need our help.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of darkness out there. We did do a few of the workshops and ayahuasca. We did a women's one that was very powerful. And we did one with Anochi. And now we're going to pivot to this because this is really something unique and different, and it's in our wheelhouse. Like, again, there's Adama, there's Anochi, there's so many people offering workshops, and people can come to Tikun and drink ayahuasca before or after going to Adama. This guy left amazing. He left on top of the world. Hopefully he sticks with it. Hopefully he comes to the integration calls. But I think it was a very successful plan that they put together for
in general, the people who are most likely to come are the people who are doing the work. Right. Someone who works with life coaches is the one most likely to call another life coach. Right. Those are the people. I've worked with so many coaches over the years. There's almost never a time in my life that I'm not working with one or two people.
Interesting.
Those are the people most likely where it's not competitive, it's additive. It's like in the restaurant business. The best place to be is next to the other restaurants, because
that's
the
where
people who come
goes.
to restaurants go to restaurants.
So I hope there'll be more people like that who come to Adama, come to Tikun, and
right. Meaning, it's additive, meaning that Tikun will bring people in that will end up sending people to other places healing. People come here, right? It's just So as people get more into the work, then they find the things that
and I like what you said in other podcasts, and I think this was like the main argument that I think was really good. It's like, why do we have to take ayahuasca or plant medicine and put it in a different category of healing? Like,
that's right. That's
again, they all have risks built into them. None of them are perfect, but they're right for the right person. So
that's essentially my message around plant medicine, is that it should be as if someone wants to heal, if someone wants to grow, then you have all the categories of things that are out there, and just have this as another category. And plant medicine did need a little bit of an extra boost because of the fact, because of all the the legalities, because of some collapsing of drugs and medicines all in one conversation, and people not understanding those things, and then some idol worship ideas and religion and all of those things getting mixed in.
Right.
But once it's there on that playing field, then say, okay, here's someone wants to heal, someone wants to grow. Look at all the available options. You want to look at DBT therapy. You want to look at
and really
EMDR,
that's been my mission with Tikun is making it accessible, like taking all those questions out of the equation. Like there is no avodah zarah there. There's no hint of it. There's no whiff of it. It's just not there. It's just trying to just really make it about the healing and about the work and the work after, and kind of trying to just make it more accessible, to our community, mostly.
That's what we need it. We need it. And I've seen miracles, like literally tremendous miracles. But maybe we'll have to cut this part out. But you experienced Adama for a little bit, and Adama light.
I'm happy to talk about it. It was amazing.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Why do we have?
No, sure. I'm saying it's not like Adama before, and you.
Yeah. No, I was
because we do the weekend retreats, and then
that was a really great experience. So part of, like, I guess, I don't know if it was.
You're far from the mic.
Like, maybe like a pitfall of being in the work is like sometimes it's hard to be in the work. I'm kind of like trying to like figure out the mechanics of it, and like why it works and how it works and what are they doing. Like with medicine, also with everything. Yes. Like, I'm in a ceremony with another. I'm trying to what's different about this, that. So you and the mayor came to the last Jewish Recovery Center retreat. So shout out to Mayor Kessler again for the JRC.
He's bold. He's not afraid to.
He's bold, very, very instrumental in my recovery, was there for me from the beginning again. But when I had my last hurrah with the gambling, he was the guy who was there for me. Anyway, very involved in that community. And you guys came and did a little
did a Sunday
sampler.
morning workshop, yeah.
Yeah, a little sampler, 2-hour workshop. And I didn't know what I was stepping into. And again, wanting to just analyze, but before you knew it, I was in your face yelling. I don't know if you remember. It was powerful. It was great to be able to release that, to tap into.
Yeah, I can tell you the observation I made then, if you
Sure.
Yeah. So the observation I made about you then, like in terms of the struggle, right? Because wearing the facilitator hat, like that's my role to discern.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. So the observation was someone who is afraid of their own power.
Yeah.
Right. Someone who's in more places than one.
It make me cry. Yeah. Story of my life. I mean, it's been my medicine journeys for the last bit, and it's it's hard. It's hard. Again, the judgment.
Judgment.
Yeah, back to the judgment piece.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's not judgment.
I'm not scared of judgment?
No, that's the red herring. That's
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what's the real thing?
Responsibility.
I don't know, because I take my responsibility pretty seriously.
Exactly. So with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
With small power comes small responsibility. So if you take your responsibility very seriously, then the more you admit to your power,
right,
then the more you admit to your responsibility. So you call it fear of judgment, you call it voice in the head and everything else, but it's fear of responsibility, I think.
You're hitting a nerve. Yeah. You're hitting the truth. That's it. Again, I've had a lot of work around this, but yeah, maybe this will be the first step for me to step more out into my power. I don't know. I've been doing it slowly. Been doing it more and more at Tikun. Yeah.
Okay. So I invite you formally. I've never invited someone on the podcast. I invite you formally to Adama.
You're inviting me to Adama?
I think it would do something very special for this. I've never invited someone on the podcast to Adama, but this.
We're doing a lot of firsts.
No, but this, first of all, we touched it in the 2 hours, right? So obviously,
yeah.
Mayor once told me, came to him on a medicine journey. He said, like, nothing we're doing there's nothing we could do at an Adama. Like me or Mayor, like nothing, or Omar. Nothing me, Mayor, or Omar can do at an Adama. All of the work for it is done before. Meaning it's who we are showing up in that room, and then those energies come together to create a certain space. What we say, what we do, like, okay.
It's the same thing at Tikun with medicine ceremonies.
Go ahead.
The container that we create, the way that we show up,
is
going to have an impact on the journey, what happens in that room. Again, we have no control over what happens, but the way that we show up is going to dictate what type of ceremony it's going to be.
Right. So if someone wanted to understand and analyze, like you said, you were sitting in this couple hour Adama workshop, like what's going on, right? So what's going on is 100% self-work. So it's, in that case, me and Mayor, when it's a weekend, me, Mayor, and Omar, it's the self-work that we have done to that point, all accumulated, put into a pressure cooker. A weekend is created, and in that energetic space, things happen. And being that you touched 2 hours of it and something triggered, it seems to me that a full weekend can possibly unlock something here. So, anyways, invitation, you don't have to answer now, but it felt appropriate to...
I appreciate the invite. What about the plant? Do you want to have the plant there also?
The what?
You don't remember after? So what happened at I gave you an idea afterwards. I'm like, what if we have my son there as the plant every single time? You don't remember?
Oh, it's the plant.
No, like the plant, like it was a very powerful moment.
Yes, it was very powerful
for me to go through what I went through. And my son Yisrael was in the room, and nobody knew that he was my son.
Yes.
So when that was revealed, it kind of like
Yes.
blew everybody away. So
Yes.
I told you, like, we should have a plant that when I come, we'll plant Yisrael in there also. They won't know.
But those, those you can't prepare, you can't plan, because you went through a very powerful process, and to find that afterwards, it was right in front of your son.
Yeah, that was.
So your son said at the time, he said he wants to be the youngest guy on the podcast, and I invited him then, and it's still a good invitation. He seems to be a very amazing gentleman.
Young boy, and every parent should have the amount of nachas that I have from this kid, and maybe you'll see him on here soon.
Is he the same? The baby you spoke about, who you felt like it was looking through your soul?
He's the baby, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, in the story. All right. So, Rebbe Yisrael, one day when you're ready, the invitation's open. So we made 2 invitations on this.
Yeah.
I hope, listen, they're just invitations.
Yeah.
They're not, nothing more than that. Okay. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you so
on.
much. I hope this was helpful to someone.
I hope.
We'll find out. We'll hear inshallah.
I don't get that much feedback anymore directly.
What? You don't get feedback?
Here and there, some people say, what, are they going to send me a message every week? So here and there.
Yeah.
I get general feedback about the podcast, but it's not like that much specific feedback. But
yeah, the feedback is generally positive. Like I told you, the recovery community sometimes has some gripes that they feel like you're pushing plant medicine more than whatever they feel like there's a just like to button up, I guess, like this whole thing, like why, like one thing you were saying, we said was that like, oh, like why does it have to be equal? Why does it have to be a threat? Is the like, why is it a threat? I'm not threatened by, like, I believe that everybody will find their path. Like there's all these different healers, healing modalities, like people will find the path. Why is there like this?
Yeah. And I don't think there's
what?
Yeah. I don't think there's one way. And for a while I saw myself as, when I first started the podcast, I made myself much more available for people reaching out, and then it became overwhelming. But at that point in time, I felt almost like ER triage, where people would call me, and based on the conversation I share, I think this could be helpful or that could be helpful. I kind of as a next step in their journey. The amount of time I recommend the 12 steps, and it's to people who've done plant medicine, like I mentioned this example, people who've come to Adama, and say, hey, you know, if you want to break through the next phase of your journey, that program, what it offers and what it delivers, can and will change your life.
So I think that's like to me,
different people need different things at different times.
And I think, like, for me, an important place to end would be like, I'm a big proponent of the 12 steps. It saved my life. I'm forever grateful to it, and I still send people there, and I still believe very much in it.
Yeah, and I 100% in the same place. And if anyone's getting messages otherwise about that, it's not at all. There's the fact of the matter is 12 steps has been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of people sick with addiction, and a lot of people sick in the 12 steps. And the darkness, as we said, is getting thicker. The urgency is increasing. And the more that there can be available for people to heal. And I know my life has been transformed from the 12 steps. My life has been transformed from plant medicines. And I wouldn't want a world where both weren't fully accessible to me if I was struggling with what I was struggling with.
Fully agree. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be sitting here today if not for the 12 steps and plant medicine.
Yes. And in my case, and Adama.
There you go.
All right. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you coming out. Thank you.